AI models have advanced incredibly quickly over the past year, and now almost anyone with an idea and the motivation to build can create software. But as development accelerates, product requirements and scope often become fragmented across sessions, agents, computers, people, and repositories. This has always been a challenge in software development, but it becomes even more painful in the age of AI engineering. That's why we built Speq. At its core, Speq is an intelligent repository for product requirements. Instead of letting the source of truth live in tickets, Slack conversations, meeting notes, or even the code itself, Speq centralizes it in an AI-backed system that can provide the right context to any agent, developer, PM, or QA bot who needs it. The result is faster execution, better alignment, and more confidence that you're building the right thing across every surface of development. All right, let's dive in. What you're seeing here is the homepage. This is where you can create a new spec, and it's also where you can view or edit specs that you've already created. Before we go further, I want to pause for a second and talk about the anatomy of a spec. At its core, a spec captures requirements across a series of phases. So when you ask, what is a spec? The answer is, it's the result of detailed conversations with our agents to define and refine the vision, navigation flow, product requirements, logic flows, and technical requirements for a product. The goal is to capture as much context as possible so that not only do you have a clear picture of what you're building, but any coding agent you hand it off to has the requirements and context it needs to succeed. That's really the heart of what a spec is. And throughout this demo, you'll see these 5 phases show up again and again across the product. So let's keep going. We're going to build a spec for a bank application, a tool I wish existed. Think of it as an AI-based system that can interpret and manage transactions from your bank account. As you can see, we enter the initial prompt, and then the vision agent comes back and starts asking clarifying questions. Its job is to make sure it fully understands the product, vision, and all the important details behind it. It offers answer choices for convenience, but you can also type a custom response at any point, either instead of or in addition to those options. For this first part of the demo, I'm showing you what a normal Q&A round looks like and roughly how long it takes for the model to respond. After that, we'll speed through the rest of the phases. So we answer a handful of questions, submit them, and send them back to the agent. It processes the input and returns with another round of questions. Many phases include multiple rounds like this. I'm going to speed things up as we move forward, and eventually we land on the summary view for the vision phase. Here you can see the system summarizing the core content at the top, then breaking out the other areas it's tracking as it builds the spec. We can review that summary, request changes if something looks off, and then continue to the next phase. The next phase is flow. This is where the questions become more navigation oriented, how the views are organized, how the UI works together, and how the user moves through the system. You'll also notice that we use Mermaid code to generate diagrams. That's helpful because it's easy for humans to review, and it's also easy for models to interpret. So Mermaid becomes a powerful way to express more advanced concepts and flow diagrams in a format that works well for both parties. This summary view captures all of the flow-related content the system has gathered, and as you move through each phase, the right-hand side shows your progress. Each completed phase stays visible, and you can review it at any time while you're answering the questions in the next one. So you always have those 5 phases available as a kind of breadcrumb trail. From there, we move into the product requirements. In addition to the vision and the flow, this phase focuses on any remaining product-specific requirements or open questions. The agent asks detailed, thought-provoking questions, often the kind that make you realize, oh, I didn't specify that, or I should have thought through that a little more. The idea is to create an interview experience that pulls as much useful information forward as possible before any building begins. That way, when you're ready to hand this off downstream, the agent has the context it needs, and the probability of success is much higher. The flow here is very similar. We answer the questions, and at the end of the product phase, it shows us the requirements it has generated. You can review them in detail, see how they connect back to the flow components, and start to see the product really take shape. Next, we move into logic flows. This is where the agent identifies areas of specialized or custom logic that need to be clearly defined. It wants to make sure it understands exactly how those parts of the application should behave. Again, this phase makes heavy use of Mermaid to represent things like login flows, authentication, validation, error handling, and other important logic. We're not just using Mermaid to create diagrams, we're using it to communicate these concepts to the model in a way that it can reason through effectively. That becomes especially useful later when generating test suites. After that, we move into the final phase, technical requirements. This is where you define the implementation details. What platforms are you targeting? What tools do you want to use? Is this a web app? Should it use Tailwind? What database, language, or framework should the model build with? This phase creates a technical summary that tells the model exactly what technologies to use and how the solution should be structured. It also defines things like data models, endpoints, and other implementation details. Once the spec is complete, you get all 5 phases presented in sequence in a detailed view that captures everything defined throughout the interview process. Now let's look at what it means to edit a spec. We've built one version of the spec and captured all of those requirements, but what happens when you want to add or change a feature? That's a completely normal part of product development. Maybe you want to introduce something new, modify an existing feature, or expand the scope. Typically, people just jump into the code and start making changes without really documenting them. They live in the code, they vibe, and they move fast. But that often creates drift between what the product is supposed to be and what it actually becomes. We're proposing a different approach. Keep the spec current first. The spec remains the source of truth for the product's requirements. Then, from that source of truth, you can emit the requirements to an agent that can build the change and keep you updated on progress. So here, we're going to walk through editing a spec. In this example, we're adding support for receipt uploads to the bank application. Initially, the app only supported PDF statement uploads. Now we want to add receipts. We enter the change request, add a little context, and then go through the same phases again, but this time, the questions are focused specifically on the change we're making in the context of the broader product scope. The model takes the original spec into account as it works through the update, and you get a diff view showing how the edited version changes from the original. That same pattern continues through every phase. You answer a focused set of questions tied directly to the change request, and then the system updates each phase accordingly. You can review those edits, compare them to the original, and adjust them as needed. And that's the core workflow. Create a spec, refine it through structured conversations, and then keep it current as the product evolves. Once you finish editing the spec, you can review the entire diff in a single view and then save your changes to create a new draft version. Once you're happy with how everything looks, you can approve that draft and merge it into main, so the updated version becomes the new source of truth. All previous versions of the spec are preserved and can be reviewed at any time. That gives you a clean paper trail as people across the team make changes and you want to understand exactly what changed over time. Now that the spec is where we want it, we can look at the export options. First, you can export the spec as a JSON object. Second, you can convert it into a PRD, which packages all the context and detail from the spec into a requirements document. That makes it very easy for modern AI agents to consume and build from. Third, you can generate a pitch, which gives you a short, medium, and long summaries of the product you're building. So if you're trying to share the idea with someone and want a quick, up-to-date summary, the agent does a great job of keeping that content current and easy to share. So that's Speq, an intelligent requirements repository that helps you define your product clearly, keep requirements current as they evolve, and collaborate more effectively with teammates, agents, engineers, and anyone else building in the modern AI era. We'd love to hear what you think, and we'd welcome any feedback or insights that you have for us to consider. Thank you.